Every chef's favourite seafood. Whether you're a beginner in the kitchen or a seasoned pro, I've got 3 amazing ways to prepare scallops that will take your cooking skills to the next level. With the last technique being one used in some of the best Michelin-starred kitchens in the world. First up, let's start with how I make scallops at home for a quick and easy dinner.
Okay, so we've got some absolutely stunning XL scallops here. And the way that a scallop works is essentially they will open and close their shell across the sea floor. So they're quite cool when you watch them actually swimming around. Basically, this is the hinge joint for this shell, which is how they sort of move around. So sometimes when they're nice and fresh like these are, you just have to get your knife in there and just slightly open it. So you're just prizing that shell apart. Place your knife in, and then you just gotta open it nice and quickly. So just take a spoon and slowly prise the flesh and the meat away from the bottom shell. And it is just all about making sure that there's absolutely no meat left on there at the end. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually keep that shell, because the first technique I'm going to show you, we're going to use that as like the presentation. The main biology of it is that's the skirt, completely edible. It's just sometimes contains quite a lot of grit. This thing is called the roe, tends to sometimes be removed, which I always think is a real shame when you get them in restaurants, because it is still delicious. It just cooks slightly differently to the actual scallop itself. This is the main meat of the scallop. And then this is almost like the abductor muscle that joins itself to the rest of the shell. Put my thumb in between the abductor and the main part of the flesh. And what you want to do is just gently, I'm just really showing you slowly here, prise away the rest of that flesh, and then you're left with this perfect, beautiful scallop. From opening, from shucking straight into ice cold water. So if you lay them on a tray neatly and stack them up like that, you'll get this perfect shape once they kind of set and firm up in the fridge. So to prep the rest of the scallop, you can use the abductor muscle. I feel like it gets wasted quite a lot, but it is absolutely fine to eat. And then what I do is just gently go down and take off the rest of the roe, cleaning it up. Perfect, give that a nice good wash. Restaurants are typically criminal for just wasting things that don't need to be wasted. Okay, and then we've got the skirt. And then this is essentially the poop sack, and the rest, I'm not really sure what it is, but it doesn't look very nice, so I'm not going to use it. You can get scallops now in a lot of different places, so I saw them in the supermarket recently. I would say that it's good to go to your fishmonger if you want to, and you could get your fishmonger in fairness to do this step for you. They wouldn't mind doing this at all. And it's one of the nicest jobs to do in cooking, to be honest, doing scallops. Give these shells a really quick wash, using a bit of warm water. It's mainly the outside of the sort of scallop that you want to kind of make sure it's nice and clean. What we're going to do with these is simple. Just going to make some breadcrumbs and bake them in the shell with the breadcrumbs and a little bit of garlic butter. All we need to do to start this recipe is just dice up a little bit of butter, do a little bit of confit shallot, which will go inside our butter. So what we're going to do is just melt that butter, and then as it melts, this garlic and this shallot is just going to very lightly cook. We don't want it to caramelize, just want it to be sort of translucent. Add a touch of salt, a pepper. Just add a few anchovies, so nice background season. We can use salt or Parmesan. It's almost a way of just seasoning rather than adding just salt, so it adds a bit more of a depth to it. So whilst that softens, get a little loaf of bread. This is just a Campo style bread, so not sourdough or anything, just a nice yeasted bread with a bit of whole grain. Don't worry about the crusts. Crusts are going to give it a good flavour. This is almost just like making a pangrattata. Bit of lemon zest, just for freshness. We'll save the actual lemon itself, just to season the scallop at the end. This is just a little domestic blender that we use, but really simple, just licks it up a little bit. And then to that, I've got some chervil. If you don't have chervil, don't worry. You could use maybe something like curly parsley, but it just adds a nice sort of aniseed note to it. Just lightly cut that up, just chiffonade, and then just pick a little bit of parsley. Okay, so whack your parsley in there as well. Touch of salt into the breadcrumbs. Tiny little pinch of nutmeg into the breadcrumbs as well. Put a touch of olive oil in there. I know we've got the butter as well, but this will just help make sure that doesn't burn. All we're going to do is actually put these under the grill, and then to secure them, just make a really rough little nest per scallop. Okay, so
hey guys, what's going on?
Freshly shucked scallops go back in the shell, and then you kind of building them the way they were actually sort of formed in the first place. Now just season the top, and then load up this scallop with a little bit of breadcrumb, and then when you're spooning this butter over, make sure you're getting in a good amount of the shallots on there as well. So I'm just putting that on there now, all the garlic and all the butter. Just don't be shy. And then just finish over the top again, just a light sprinkling. Scallops under the grill. Right, so let's have a look. Woo! Beautiful, bubbling garlic butter. Just finished with a little bit of jus de limon and happy days. Okay, so this is it, chef. This is what my perfect beginner level scallop. This is what I'm cooking on holiday if I get some nice shellfish. What do you reckon?
I reckon I'm coming on holiday with you, chef.
Push in. Not enough space in the car, boss. Just look how meaty that scallop is as well. It looks like a lot of butter, but you definitely need all that butter.
It's good, chef. I always think the roe is underrated as well.
Yeah, we were saying that earlier.
Leave it in there. Hey, keep up the good work, chef.
Thanks, mate. Next technique, slightly more advanced. What we're going to do now is, whereas we open the scallops from like this, there's also another way you can open them. To be honest, it's actually my preferred way. You can hold it towards you and then just run your knife down right the way to the hinge, open it up, and then you get very little meat left on the shell. This is a technique that we always use. It's called a spoon technique. And full transparency, this is what I've used pretty much all of my career because it's 10 times quicker. But you use the nice sharp edge of your spoon and you go in perfectly, just pull towards you, and then you can just select the scallop, which is obviously the bit that you want. What we're going to do is just make a really simple beurre blanc, adding in some white wine into a pan to around about 300 mils, and then some vinegar. I'm using Chardonnay vinegar, but you can use a cider vinegar or white wine vinegar. And this is going to add your sort of the sweetness to the sauce. So a beurre blanc is just very classic French sauce. It's a butter-based sauce, so similar to a hollandaise, but you start with a base of reduced liquid first. And then we're seasoning that just with some shallots, and we want to cook these until they're beautiful and translucent. Okay, so I'm just chopping up as well. I've got a little bit of dulse. So it's basically a type of red kelp. It's got a really cool flavour. You can replace this with any sort of dried seaweed you can get, or indeed you can replace it with some nori sheets that you would use to make sushi. So just chop it up finely. Add the dulse in. Okay, so we've got some asparagus here, which is perfect to serve with something like scallops. So I'm just gonna take it off on the bias, which is just a diagonal cut at the bottom, just to remove that. And then to finish our sauce, all we'll be doing is adding in Monte butter. And it's really important for a blanc that this stays in the fridge and that we dice it up first. So dice it up nice and small and then return that back into the fridge. And then one of the things I'm going to use to finish this sauce is just this nori sheets. So really easy to get. It'll give you this really good hit of minerality and umami as well. So best thing we're going to do is just to blitz that up. So into a little coffee grinder or spice grinder. So just pulse that up until you get these cool little shards like that. So it'll add a nice little texture and colour to the sauce. Okay, so I've got a non-stick pan and I'm going to put a good amount of oil in there, and then I'm just going to oil the scallops as well. Nicely lubricated. Pepper, a good hit of salt all over the scallops. And then pan-searing. The important thing, what we're always trying to get, is we're trying to get a really epic crust on our scallop. So that starts by drying them off, which we've already done, and then laying them down into a scorching hot pan. We're just trying to make that initial contact, and the way I'm also resting them in the pan is, you can see I'm using the other one to prop the other one up so you don't get too much of a colour all up the way the sides. The smell of roasting scallops is just something else. But now, once they've seared for about 35 seconds, just check that they're colouring up nicely. So by agitating them like this, and by moving them around slightly, you'll just make sure that the colour is nicely sort of dissipated. They're now probably like 10% of the way cooked. So just adding in a little bit of butter, but keep them face down. So you can actually take a scallop quite far. It's beautiful, epic sear. So now just reduce the heat right down, and they're just going to get a little butter bath until they're nicely cooked. So a nice bit of nut brown butter. This stage I'm just going to whack in those rows as well. They can just lightly come up. They don't need a hard sear. We're not trying to develop colour on there. We're just trying to cook them through. Just take those out and they will actually just continue to cook nicely. Add in our asparagus like this into that brown butter, and that's just going to cook away nicely in the brown butter whilst that roe continues to come up to the right temperature. Asparagus can come out, which has been cooking in that brown butter. Beautiful scallop butter. And now we can start finishing our sauce. So almost all of the liquid is reduced away from this now, and then what we always do is just take it off the heat. Now a little hack for you, I always add a tiny splash of double cream into, or whipping cream into a beurre blanc. Just adds a little bit of stability to it, and then we can start off emulsifying our butter. The heat's not on anymore. What I want is a really nice loose beurre blanc. So you can take that reduction even further and get a more intense sauce, but I want it fairly loose because I want it to sort of nicely dress the dish. So you're just waiting until the last piece of butter that you put in has kind of dissolved, and then adding in a bit more. So a good hit of lemon juice going in there. I'm going to add in a good tablespoon of our nori sheets that have been blitzed up. It's going to change the colour slightly as well. Just more of that seaweed, sort of bright green that we're looking for. So these scallops are nicely rested now. So just carve them up delicately. So nice and sort of translucent in the centre. Our asparagus is nice and lightly cooked. That just goes into little batons. Some little sea fennel, just lightly wilted down in that same scallop pan, and just a few fresh, could use chervil or parsley. I've just got a little bit of chervil here, just to finish through the sauce. So you want the sauce to be quite a nice sort of thick consistency. It's going to coat all the ingredients in the dish. And then we'll go on first with our scallops. So one nice cut, asparagus goes around. Then just add your sea veg on top, and then just finish with the sort of nutty scallop butter that you had in the base of the pan.
So what level are we here? Intermediate? Uncle Roger would be loving this asparagus.
Easy peasy. You could actually easily do this for a dinner party.
Yeah, definitely. More elegant, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more of a dish.
More flavours going on, nice acidity. The other one's like rich and hearty, like pub food.
This is more of a dinner party dish, whereas the one before is like chill summer vibe. Last recipe is actually a sort of amalgamation of a few different techniques I learned whilst working in Michelin restaurants. The first technique, which I thought was really cool when I first saw it, was a technique from the Clove Club, which is a 2-star restaurant in Shoreditch. And I just thought, like, it's basically a way of adding a different texture and look to the scallop by inserting in some seaweed into the mix. And it just looked epic. So I thought I'd do that, but I wanted to also show a technique that I think people think is often really difficult. It's actually really simple, just need a few different ingredients, and that's a foamed sauce. I'm going to use the rest of the scallop skirts and roe to make a light stock, and the only thing I don't want to put into my stock is this poop sack. So poop sack is removed. Give it a light rinse as well, just because it can be quite fishy, and then that's ready to use. So the sauce is actually based from a restaurant called Scallops, which is a little 1-star Korean restaurant. So we're basically going to make a really simple dashi, but we're going to use fish stock as the base. So if you can't get fish stock, it's really simple to make. You can click here and I can show you how to make a fish stock in one of our other videos. We're going to add in our scallop roes as well, the skirts and roe. Go in. I think this recipe is going to it'll be perfect if you want to impress someone. And just to make this into a dashi, so we've got our base of fish stock, we've got our scallop roes in there, we've got some really nice aromats which is making it smell incredible, which is just the ginger and the crushed garlic. This is a Korean variety of seaweed, but it's essentially kombu sheet, so salted kombu, and then that just goes in. We're going to bring it up to the boil, and then we're going to reduce the heat and we'll let that infuse and steep about 70 degrees, and then that'll be the base for our sauce later. A few last sort of minutes at aromats, so it's been to the boil and it's just been simmering. Just going to add in a couple of spring onions, a few spring onions, stalks from herbs that I've got. So I've got some coriander and a little bit of parsley. It's got a really nice delicate flavour, so we're just we don't want to reduce it, we're just kind of adding depth to this now. Awesome flavour. Okay. So we've got this beautiful scallop, and what we're going to do is we're just going to use a very sharp knife. 1, 2, 3. So nice cuts all the way down. Then we're working out the exact sort of height of the scallop, and we're going to cut these little sort of plinths inside the scallop meat, which will give, once it's steamed, it'll give this awesome effect. Any trim in excess that you've got, just place straight into the stock. You've got these nice little cubes, open that scallop up. And nori's got a natural salt content, so it's going to start to season the scallop throughout as it sits in there. And then it's all just about just trimming this up, and just follow the natural shape of the scallop to trim it up. You get left with this pretty cool looking scallop, and then we've got the seaweed running all the way through, and when we carve this open later, it's going to look absolutely epic. I think it seems like one of those things that's so ultra complicated, but when you actually see it, it's pretty simple and it's easy to achieve. I think for anyone who wants to go and work in a Michelin kitchen, it's little things like this that you don't Like we were thinking about doing this video, and then this one way of preparing them just came to my brain, which I saw years ago. And that's the thing with the Michelin. You get loads of these tiny little minute techniques. Just gonna season those scallops with a little bit of salt and pepper. Oh, flavour on that. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Get a little whiff on that. That's just a hug in a mug. Okay, so to finish the sauce, we're just gonna pass it off now. It's infused for roughly around about 20 minutes, which is perfect for a dashi. So strain off the liquid, some white soy. Those of you who don't, you can use dark soy if you want, but it will affect the colour. The element that you need to make your sauce foam is always either a bit of butter or a bit of cream. Cream on this case. Just gonna add a bit of texture to the sauce. I couldn't get fresh yuzu. I wanted to use a different type of citrus, so this is a yuzu juice that you get. Yuzu is just a type of sort of Asiatic citrus. Okay, so I'm gonna add just a little bit of soy lecithin, and lecithin just adds sort of body and a foaming agent to your sauce or stock. Just take that off the heat, and you can start to see a light foam forming around there. Okay, so scallops have just been lightly seasoned, so you can see they're just starting to release a little bit of their moisture, and we'll just add these into the top of the rack where they can steam more gently, and then our leeks can go on here as well. So the scallops are nearly cooked. You can see they've sort of changed colour a little bit. And adding our sea veg into there as well. So just nice and soft, not too firm. So we're just going to take that off and allow it to continue to steam. Our leeks, they're nice and tender. Finish them with a little bit of salt, pepper. So this is what we want. It's like nice translucent colour in the scallop and that beautiful sort of mosaic effect all the way through. So I dressed with a little bit of oil, a little bit more of the yuzu juice, and we're ready to plate. Finish our dish, what we're going to do is just layer on these charred leeks, that beautiful scallop on there, and then just finish this dish by just lightly foaming your sauce and just spooning over just the foam. So you can take off the foam, skim that off the top, and it'll have all that flavour from the sauce, but you're just adding this, it's an extra sort of texture, and then just a tiny little bit of good quality oil to split the sauce out. That'll just add a little bit of fragrance to the sauce. Have you seen this technique before?
I haven't, no. But it looks cool.
Yeah.
Kombu scallop, I mean, we know it's going to taste good.
So such a different dish to the other two. A lot more elegant.
It's like subtle and gentle. Yeah, definitely a really interesting way to elevate your standard scallop dish into a Michelin-worthy dish. That was scallop 3 ways. If you want to see us how to make more stuff 3 ways, like and subscribe.